All right, welcome once again to another episode of Engaging the Mind. This is a third episode of 3 podcasts that I'm doing with my good friend James Bisadecki, senior pastor of First Baptist Church in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and he is president of the Oklahoma extension of the Conservative Baptist Network. Please go back and listen to our previous 2 podcasts where we've dealt with critical race theory, intersectionality, cultural Marxism, and what those things have in common. So you'll need to check out the last 2 podcasts that I've done with James. We both have the same color shirts on each time, so we're shooting these all in one day. We do wear more clothes than these. So, and I wanted to do a third podcast because James has recently written a paper calling for transparency within the Southern Baptist Convention. And I think it's so important, it needs to be heard. And so I want James to share with us what he wrote in that paper, and let's talk about that. So James, if you would please.
Absolutely.
Go, brother.
Well, it's these topics are always hard because we don't want to appear to be the Pharisaical dividers of the convention. None of us want to be that. But I think as brothers in Christ, we have a responsibility to hold each other accountable in especially as Southern Baptists together. Historically, we have been one of the great gospel sharing entities of the world. Yeah. I mean, sending missionaries around the world as we have, planting churches, growing churches, and we have a rich history. Mm-hmm. Now, you think of somebody like Annie Armstrong, and we celebrate Annie every year, or we have.
The Easter offering.
The Annie Armstrong Easter offering is just is a huge deal. Annie Armstrong was a trailblazer. I mean, she was all over the place, all over the country, raising support for African American women doing mission work, for Native Americans, for Chinese, for Italian, for Jewish. She was their advocate. You talk about breathtaking efforts.
Yeah.
She was everywhere. And because of that lifetime of sacrifice, and it was sacrifice, because if you think about it, in all of those efforts that she made to raise money for missions, she never took a salary. She never took a dime from it. It was all at her own expense. And when she was asked about it, she just went back to King David's words and said, "How can I give that to the Lord which cost me nothing?"
Right.
And you just think about the incredible self-sacrifice that characterized Annie, and compare that now to the accusations that are kind of swirling around North American Mission Board.
Right.
And you walk away just depressed.
Yeah.
Because whether these accusations are true, and this is, for me, this is an issue because I'm not inventing these questions.
Yeah, these are questions that are already out there.
These are questions that are popping up. You've got blogs and websites popping up all the time that are the new whistleblower kind of websites and blogs. They'll be dismissed as basement bloggers and all this kind of stuff. But if there's substance to some of the things that they're saying, then these issues need to be dealt with.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, James. I was a trustee for the North American Mission Board for 8 years.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I loved my time there. God used Kevin Ezell in my life personally to help give me direction and vision for the church I currently pastor, First Baptist Edmond. And so, I mean, we are a church planting church here at First Baptist Edmond. We have been for the last, for many years, and we have become very aggressive in Send North America. We are a sending church, and so I just, God used Kevin Ezell to play a huge role in my life as a pastor. But I will say that there's nothing wrong within the SBC to call for transparency.
That's right.
Calling for transparency is not questioning someone's character. Calling for transparency is good stewardship. Mm-hmm. And so I too believe that there needs to be a call for transparency within the Southern Baptist Convention. I do think a lot of these questions, the Bible says don't accept a witness against a brother unless it's out of the mouth of 2. Well, we've had more than 2 witnesses who have said something about what's going on in the North American Mission Board. And so I just think that it's time to have an honest discussion. We need to listen to these questions, and we need to encourage transparency. And these questions need to be answered because they're coming out of the mouth of more than two witnesses.
That's right. And you're a pastor.
Yes.
I'm a pastor. We're dealing with these issues not just out in the blogosphere or on Twitter. We're dealing with these questions from church members.
Yes.
Who have convictions about their giving, who want to be good stewards of the widow's mite, who's sacrificing their money to give to missions. We've got a responsibility for that. And so when we're talking about transparency about dollars and transparency about decisions, this is so that we can encourage more giving and encourage the giving based on the integrity of the organization.
So we got people in our pews, and that's who we want to stand up for,
right.
Is the widow in the pew who believes that her money is going to support what Annie Armstrong believed in, mm-hmm. and to support Southern Baptist work.
Right.
Can you give us an example recently of perhaps some of the type of church plants that cooperative program dollars, Annie Armstrong dollars, have gone to support that the person in the pew probably would not agree with?
Yeah. I think a great case in point would be Echo Church in San Jose, California.
Okay.
Because this intersects a couple of ideas. Okay. On the one hand, you've got pastors on staff that are women, and in this case, you've got a history of Southern Baptist position on this issue with great clarity. Mm-hmm. We've been unambiguous about this. Baptist Faith and Message is so clear. Kevin Ezell has been asked this question, and in email dialogues, the initial answer would be what we would expect. It would be, well, no, we scrutinize, and we've got high standards for the pastors of those churches, and they're going to be in line with the Baptist Faith and Message. But as soon as you start digging a little deeper, what you find is that although we may have that standard for, quote, senior pastors, that does not mean that other teaching pastors and associate pastors and others on staff may not be women. And in his words, we don't scrutinize that at all. So
is it safe to say that we have SBC dollars, Annie Armstrong dollars that have gone, that has gone or is going to support church plants that have women pastors on staff?
Right, and that is the accusation.
Did you hear that? That is not who we are.
Clearly footnoted, in some of the articles that I've read.
Yeah.
Example after example after example.
Multiple
of these.
examples. Yeah.
So it's not even just this church, but this church is a great example because it was used at least at one point by NAM as kind of a model church.
Yeah.
For church planters, they got a residency program for North American Mission Board church planters. They have assessments that happen there at the church. The investment made, apparently 2 homes that are in value of $1 million each connected to that church with NAM money involved.
Yeah.
So that's cooperative program money involved. And here's a church that not only has women on staff in teaching pastor roles, but also makes their own beer.
Yeah. Wow.
So now you've got an example of some crossover issues. We recognize that there's going to be people in the convention that have different views of alcohol. We understand that.
Yes.
However,
I'm pulling up something as you're talking, so I'm listening.
We as Southern Baptists have had some pretty strong stands on this in the past. And if that position is not being enforced, it's being done in violation not only of the sentiment of Southern Baptist churches, but also in direct violation of North American Mission Board Code of Conduct.
Yeah.
So now we've got some issues to deal with that we say, wait a second. We've got people in the convention that feel really strongly about these issues in a culture that is just going down the drain. And we want to continue to maintain this. And I don't feel good about giving my money to church plants in this situation. So
I just pulled up that church while you were talking. So here you go. Can you zoom in on this? Straight This is Echo Church. Stacy Wood. Teaching pastor.
So you raise up a church planter in your church.
Right there. Teaching pastor.
Godly young man, fire in his bones to go preach the gospel. We send him to NAM as a church planting prospect. NAM sends him out to San Jose. He has a beer with Pastor Lucy so he can learn how to plant churches.
Yeah.
Now, the widow in my church is going to weep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just I can't even understand how we would get to that point. And,
right.
and the answer that you hear echoed in some of the social media spheres is, well, we're detached from the Southern churches in the convention, and so it's not as big a deal.
Yeah. So so it's not as big a deal. And by the way, it's not a big a deal. We're different from the churches in the South. It's not that big a deal with where we are. I would say to you, where does your money come from?
Yeah.
From the churches in the South. And so then I would say, Pastor, you have a duty. You have a duty to make sure that when your widowed former pastor's wife, who's 80-something years old, is sitting in the pew. Her husband was a pastor for 50 years. She's widowed now, but she's still tithing. She's still giving to the Annie Armstrong offering. You have a duty to make sure that what's being given is being given to support Southern Baptist work that's in line with what we believe and is clearly articulated in the Baptist faith and message. And so, first of all, having a woman pastor on staff, well, that's a secondary issue, some might say. No, that's an unbiblical issue, is what that is.
And it's an issue that we've clearly articulated in the Baptist faith and message.
Absolutely.
It does not limit it in the Baptist faith and message to some kind of senior pastor role. It says pastors.
Yeah, it's not even a Baptist faith and message issue.
We're not talking about titles.
It's a biblical issue.
We're talking about functions.
Yeah.
And so the issue is a serious issue for us. And it's not to say these are unbelievers even.
Yeah.
But for me, as a good steward of God's resources, I'm asking myself, is this the best case scenario for me to invest money in the kingdom to plant churches and expand the work of the gospel?
Well, I appreciate this discussion, and you can hear us now. Here at Engaging the Mind, we are calling for transparency within the Southern Baptist Convention. There's been many questions asked in relation to the North American Mission Board and how SB dollars are being spent. And it's not a character. We're not attacking anyone's character. It's not a personal issue. It's a stewardship issue for us. It's a biblical issue for us. These are questions that must be answered. And if there is wrong, then these wrongs must be righted. All right? That's all we're saying. I will go on and say this, that is Randy Adams still running for SBC? Mm-hmm. So right now we have two men. We have four that are running for president. Al Mohler, Ed Litton, Mike Stone, and Randy Adams. Yeah, sorry, I had a brain mess up. Randy Adams is a good friend of mine. We've been friends for years. Mike Stone is a candidate who's being supported by the Conservative Baptist Network. Both of those men are going to call for transparency in the Southern Baptist Convention. Both of those men. I'm not too sure about the other two, but I know those two will.
Yeah.
So, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Good, healthy discussion. I know it'll bless those who are listening. Please encourage others to subscribe. Please share. Do what you can to help us get the word out. And until we meet again, serve the King.